Imagine fighting World War II, not for 4 years, not for 10, but for 29 years, completely alone. No radio, no newspapers, no confirmation that the war was over. While the world rebuilt itself, while nations healed, one soldier stayed hidden deep in the jungle, convinced the enemy was still coming. This is not a myth. This is not a movie. This is the true story of Hiroo Onoda, the Japanese soldier who refused to surrender long after World War II officially ended. And what you're about to hear is one of the most shocking, emotional, and unbelievable war survival stories in modern history. Hiroo Onoda was born in 1922 in the city of Kainan, Japan. He grew up during a time when Japan was transforming itself into a military power, preparing for what would become a global conflict. From an early age, he was immersed in a culture that valued loyalty above all else. Loyalty to family, to country, and most of all, to the emperor. Japanese children of his generation were taught that surrender was a disgrace worse than death itself. The warrior code, Bushido, emphasized honor, sacrifice, and obedience. Onoda absorbed these lessons deeply. His childhood was steeped in stories of samurai valor, and he dreamed of serving his nation with unwavering dedication. In 1940, at the age of 18, Onoda enlisted in the Imperial Japanese Army. His superiors quickly saw his potential and sent him to the elite Nakano School. This was no ordinary training facility. Nakano was a secretive institution specializing in guerrilla warfare, espionage, and survival skills. Soldiers were trained to operate behind enemy lines, to sabotage, gather intelligence, and above all, to survive under any circumstances, without hope for rescue. This training would come to define Onoda's destiny. By late 1944, the tide of war had turned decisively against Japan. American forces were sweeping through the Pacific, capturing island after island with overwhelming firepower and resources. The Japanese military command was desperate to hold any ground they could, even if it was strategically insignificant. Onoda was assigned to Lubang Island in the Philippines, a small, jungle-covered island of limited military importance, but still vital as a potential foothold. Before he left, his commanding officer gave him a message that would haunt him for decades. "You are absolutely forbidden to surrender. No matter what happens, we will come back for you." The order was clear and absolute. Onoda was to remain on Lubang, conduct guerrilla warfare, sabotage enemy operations, and above all, survive. He was explicitly told not to take his own life, unlike many Japanese soldiers who were expected to commit suicide rather than be captured. This mission was different. It was a command to live and resist, no matter how long it took. In early 1945, American forces launched a swift assault on Lubang Island. The Japanese defenders, vastly outnumbered and outgunned, quickly fell back. Onoda and a small group of soldiers disappeared into the dense jungle, determined to continue the fight. Then, in August 1945, the unthinkable happened. Japan surrendered. The war was officially over, but Onoda refused to believe it. Allied forces dropped leaflets over the island, announcing the end of the war. They urged the Japanese soldiers to surrender and return home. But to Onoda, these messages were enemy propaganda, tricks designed to lure him out of hiding. His orders were etched deeply in his mind. Surrender was not an option. The jungle of Lubang became Onoda's world, his battlefield, his prison, and his refuge. For nearly 3 decades, he lived as a ghost in the wilderness, carrying out raids, gathering food, and evading both enemy forces and local police. Survival was brutal. Onoda and his comrades relied on whatever nature provided: bananas, coconuts, wild yams, and plants. They raided local farms for rice and livestock, often under the cover of darkness. Their clothes were tattered and patched again and again. Their weapons, rusted but maintained meticulously. Each day was a struggle to stay alive. The jungle was unforgiving, filled with dangers from wild animals, tropical diseases, and the ever-present threat of discovery. Over time, the group began to dissolve. In 1950, one soldier surrendered, unable to bear the endless war and isolation. Another was killed in a confrontation with local police. Onoda himself survived countless close calls, ambushes, firefights, and perilous escapes. By 1972, he was the last man left. Alone, still fighting, still waiting for orders that might never come. While Onoda stayed trapped in his 1945 reality, the world around him changed dramatically. Television brought news of the moon landing, the Cold War, and Japan's post-war economic miracle. Yet Onoda's jungle was a bubble outside time. He heard helicopters and search parties searching for him. He found newspapers left behind, but dismissed them as tricks and traps. His mind became a fortress of duty and denial. Surrender for him was not an act of courage, it was betrayal. His identity was tied not to peace or home, but to the orders he had sworn to follow. In 1974, a young Japanese adventurer named Norio Suzuki set out on a bizarre quest. He declared he wanted to find three things: Lieutenant Onoda, a panda, and the abominable snowman. Against all odds, Suzuki tracked Onoda deep in the Lubang jungle. When they met, rather than hostility, there was curiosity. Suzuki told Onoda the war was over. The world had, but Onoda did not surrender. He said he would only obey one person, his former commanding officer. And so Suzuki left, determined to find that officer. Suzuki found Onoda's former commander, now an elderly man living in Japan. Together, they returned to Lubang Island. In March 1974, nearly 30 years after the war ended, Onoda finally received the official order that freed him from duty. For the first time in 29 years, the war was truly over. Onoda handed over his rifle, still in working condition, along with his ammunition, grenades, and a dagger his mother had given him before the war. He stepped out of the jungle and into a world that had almost forgotten him. Onoda's return to Japan made headlines worldwide. Some hailed him as a hero, a symbol of unwavering loyalty and dedication. Others struggled to forgive the violence and hardship his long resistance had caused to local communities. Overwhelmed by the rapid pace of modern life, Onoda moved to Brazil, seeking peace in the countryside. He became a cattle rancher and wrote a memoir titled No Surrender, sharing insights into the mindset that kept him fighting for so long. Years later, he returned to Lubang Island, not as a soldier, but as a man seeking to heal old wounds. He donated money to local schools and communities, closing a chapter that had consumed nearly half his life. Hiroo Onoda's story forces us to ask difficult questions. What is loyalty? When does duty become a prison? And how powerful are the words we obey? While the world healed, one man stayed behind, fighting a war that existed only in his mind. This was not just a story of World War II. It was a story about belief, isolation, and the terrifying power of never being told to stop. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you think, subscribe for more untold war stories, forgotten soldiers, and hidden history.